How's it going, everybody? So we're sticking with maps for one more time. Like promised, we will be talking about slight Dominion variation similar to what we're currently seeing in the Survivors of the Fort game. If you missed last week's video, we took a look at possible deathmatch map changes to make them suitable to be played in Dominion. Click on the link in the top right then, or check the video description. The one other change we see in the event game mode is that the Minion Lane has been removed and a third capture point was added. What might seem like a small change at first, everyone who's played the mode should be able to attest that the dynamic of the mode is quite different compared to a normal Dominion match. Problem is that to properly judge it, we'd have to eliminate the trapper as he resets zone captures, and that will be one of the main points I'm going to bring up in just a bit. But let's talk Minion Lane first. For a long time, a Dominion match's outcome could be decided by which team had the more dedicated mid lane clearer. Nobushi, Kensei, Lawbringer, those were staple picks, and in competitive it was imperative to have at least one of those, otherwise you basically forfeited. The point generation from farming the Minion Lane was, and still is to a degree, so big that it can keep matches close in score that are otherwise complete stomps when just looking at the kills and deaths. But we went away from the overimportance of this lane. Body count has been nerfed, and with it, the sustain that many of the mid lane heroes bring. And let's also not kid ourselves, being the guy assigned to Minion Lane duty isn't really the most exciting task. Oftentimes you will see teams that completely neglect it. This is especially apparent on maps that don't have designated home points. Side point maps like Shard don't see a lot of action in that lane. Sanctuary Bridge, on the other hand, funnels both teams into the Minion Lane, as that's how the map is designed. You can't really not fight there, unless you're triple capped or have gotten triple capped yourself. But other than that, does anyone really have fun fighting in the middle of the minions? Your dodges get stopped, your attacks sometimes randomly target them without even intending to. They allow unlocking of attacks when close enough to them. Deflects sometimes get eaten by them, and well, targeting is an absolute mess when these little twats are around. It's gotten significantly better in the last few years, but it can still be an absolute pain. I don't want to use this as a pretense and convince anybody that we absolutely must remove the Minion Lane, far from it, but there's no denying that it is the cause of quite a bit of frustration sometimes. So what would happen if we replaced it with a third normal capture zone? The zone follows all the same rules, 5.5 second capture time, point generation, and so on. Nothing special about it, except for its existence. For one, matches would probably be over quicker. Granted, people play in a somewhat optimal manner, meaning most of the points are boosted if the fight situation allows it. Point generation from boosted zones is currently 1.85 per second. The last testing ground adjusted this to just 1.8 per second. Despite the fact that they adjusted the Minion Lane point generation in week 2, the boosting of a zone still outpaced simply holding the Minion Lane. And, like outlined before, farming has gone down, so we can deduce that 3 normal zones indeed would speed up a match. One problem that we'd be running into is triple capping. If you've ever been on the receiving end of it, you know that it's not a situation you want to be in. The current strategical decision that you see in competitive Dominion matches is to break mid, for the very simple fact that you can't put mid to neutral or even get control of the point without having to kill anybody. Normal capture points require you to kill the opponent, and in the current state of the game, attacking an enemy point puts you at a severe disadvantage, as it means you run the risk of feeding a lot of renown, something the defender doesn't really have to worry about, meaning they can continuously reinforce their own point. You, on the other hand, run the risk of completely throwing the match by giving the opponent their feats early. Later in the match, with all feats unlocked, this becomes way less of an issue, and score will be the leading factor for your decisions. Might even have to make a short video in the future explaining that renown does not equal score. You guys let me know. But to get back to the point, having 3 capture points that in theory all require a kill could lead to more frustration in those triple cap scenarios. It should be easy to stall for a moment to allow for reinforcements to arrive to whatever point the opposing team decides to attack. To somewhat combat this, maps that feature this 3-zone layout would require paths that aren't immediately obvious. If I can't tell what point the enemy team is going to attack, it's pretty easy to react to it and make it especially hard for them. On the other hand, many people may like this sort of a challenge, find creative ways to break out of a disadvantageous position. In the event game mode, we don't have that problem at the moment. The trapper just clears zones and stops triple caps from occurring, or rather stops them from lasting. What if we take the whole thing one step further? Because an RNG based AI that randomly messes with you is no fun in the long run. So let's add more zones. We'd be moving more towards a conquest-like mode from Battlefield. We'd have zones change hands way more often. Big fights on one point open up the rest of the map. This also makes it much harder to hold all the points. So while the points still are the objective, we've all experienced that people like fighting way more, without any logic behind it. So the more objectives we add, the less likely it is for the majority to even care for them. If they don't follow any strategy now, why would they do it all of a sudden when the number goes up? Doesn't necessarily mean it gets more complicated, but there is just more stuff to not care about for many. This is also a lot of speculation from my side. Maybe I'm underestimating the player base and I'm way too pessimistic here. There's also the whole question, does Dominion even need a shake-up like that? The whole debate came up because we tried crowbarring in old maps. Wouldn't it just be better to simply make completely new maps? Well, all the knowledge that we have right now. We know so much more how the game is played and which maps allow for great play and which ones might as well have a circus tent in the middle. It would certainly be interesting to experiment with it, but at the same time this takes away time and manpower that could have been spent elsewhere. Like on Gauntlet, that one's not just the circus, but a full-on clown college. But let's end this here. New maps to play on would definitely be nice. Whether those are completely new ones, modified deathmatch or breach maps, or whether they offer some little twist or stick to the original recipe. Doesn't really matter. Having said all that, hope the video was interesting. Thanks for watching. Laters everybody.